I decided to try Dropshotting Nymphs at Pikeview today. My brother Mark and I started Dropshotting Nymphs way back in the 80s. We had gone ocean fishing one morning and caught a bunch of rockfish and some lingcod on an iron and teaser rig. But most of the fish came on the teasers. After we got off the boat, we grabbed a quick lunch and headed over to the lake, wondering on the way why a scaled-down version of that same technique wouldn't work in freshwater. Mark had some tiny spoons that were a pretty good imitation of the rockfish irons we were using earlier, and I just used a dipsy sinker, maybe about a 1/4 ounce. We both tied on nymphs above and proceeded to catch crappie nonstop until the sun went down. Basically, we were just casting out, letting the rig sink to the bottom, then reeling them back in, occasionally giving them a little action with the rod tip. We discovered later that this technique was also deadly when fished vertically from a dock or boat, sometimes with 2 or even 3 nymphs. Sometimes we substituted streamers for the nymphs, and sometimes we put a crappie jig on the bottom. But when the schools of fish are far from shore, a skinny tungsten drop shot sinker just can't be beat. On an ultralight crappie rod with a full spool of light line, you can cast those nymphs a country mile. We also discovered that crappie weren't the only fish that love to eat nymphs. We've caught bluegill, red ear sunfish, bass, carp, trout, goldfish, rudd, suckers, hitch, and shiners using this technique. And it worked pretty well at Pikeview too. This morning I caught fish every time I dropped down, except for one time when a trout shook the hook right at the surface. If it wasn't 20 degrees and breezy, I would have stayed all day. Whether fishing vertically or casting and retrieving, be sure to cover the entire water column until you find where the fish are. Today they were from just below the surface all the way down to the bottom. My line often went loose well before it should have hit the bottom, so I would just reel up slowly until the rod tip started to bend. Then I would set the hook. The bite was pretty subtle, so you should watch your line and your rod tip for anything out of the ordinary. Also, it seemed less movement and a slow lift worked best. If you don't tie flies, Sportsman's Warehouse has plenty. I recommend size 14 to 18 for this technique, and soft materials like rabbit fur or marabou, so that your nymph will have movement even when lifting really slowly or even sitting still. I also prefer beaded nymphs for this technique, but it's not necessary. When fishing vertically, I use a lead sinker instead of tungsten, so I can easily cut it to whatever weight suits the conditions. On a day like today, when the fish are suspended from surface to bottom, a slow fall will get you more bites. The ice was only a couple of inches thick, and there was open water in some places, so I wouldn't walk out on the ice. I also recommend pocket warmers and long johns. And good luck out there.